and welcome to Episode 9 of the Bowman Color Team Sets, where we take a look at the cards that comprise each team in the Bowman set and see what they were up to during the 1953 season. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Cincinnati Reds, who, in the weird political climate of '53, would temporarily change their name. And just to change things up around here, we have a special guest narrator for today's episode. The man, the myth, the Cincinnati fan, it's none other than Zombie Collector. But before we get into that, let's take a look at the cards themselves. Okay, first up is Herman Waymeyer, 1-6 with a 7.16 ERA, so not exactly doing great in '53. Here's one of the fantastic ground ball poses in this set, Roy McMillan. He had 3 gold gloves in his career and was in the Reds Hall of Fame. Here's Willard Marshall. Fun fact about Willard Marshall, he was the second player ever to play an entire season in the outfield without committing an error. Okay, and here's the man himself, Ted Kluszewski. He had a .316 average in 1953 with 108 RBI and 40 home runs, far and away the leader of this Reds team, and of course was an all-star in 1953. All right, Harry Prokowski. He was 12-11 with a .452 ERA, and he had a 12-inning, 3-hit, 1-0 shutout versus the New York Giants. Next up, Joe Nuxhall. I had a heck of a time tracking this card down. Nuxhall is the youngest player to appear in a Major League game at 15 years old during World War II. He later became a broadcaster for the Reds. All right, here's Ken Raffensperger. He was 7-14 with a 3.93 ERA and would retire after the '54 season. All right, Bobby Adams. Shout out to a league of their own, Caitlin. 275 average and 49 RBI and a fantastic card, fantastic pose. Now this next card is probably my favorite card in the entire set in terms of the commons, Bubba Church. He was a rookie on the Philadelphia Whiz Kids, as it turns out, and was hit in the face by a line drive off of Ted Kluszewski's bat. He was back in the field a week later. And then, of course, these two guys became teammates. And there you have it, the 1953 team set for the Cincinnati Reds. And now let's turn the radio dial to Mr. Deep Thoughts himself, Zombie Collector, to hear more about why the Reds decided to ditch their name in 1953.
Time to get your Ovaltine and your Tang and shimmy up to the radio. In the early 1950s, the Reds had an unusual problem on their hands, and it had to do with the politics of the day, specifically the Cold War brewing between the good old United States of America and the Soviet Union. McCarthyism was on the rise as fear of the big red commies took hold, thanks in part to Senator Joseph McCarthy, who led the campaign to root out the Red Menace. Cincinnati's ownership wanted to ensure that their club was not getting mixed up in the media's communist frenzy. After all, Red was the term plastered across newspapers and magazines in the mid-1950s to describe those Soviet sympathizers. Just imagine the potential headline kerfuffles in 1953 as it rang out, Reds pummel Yankees, or Pittsburgh falls to the Reds. And so it came to be on that day, April 9th, 1953, the Reds officially became the Red Legs. Aside from changing the name, they also removed the word Reds from inside the C logo on the team uniforms. General Manager Gabe Hall admitted that though the name change was official, it would be difficult to change the habits of both writers and the fans. As it turns out, this was not the first time the Reds had tried to tinker with their name. They were originally known as the Red Stockings, named after baseball's first professional team, which was started in Cincinnati by Mr. Harry Wright back in 1869. Also in the 1800s, the team tried to tap into the local German heritage and booming pork industry. They were called, guys, no joke, the Porka-Politans. That's right, the Porka-Politans. Jeez. Perhaps one of the reasons all of this was on the Red Legs' minds was because Cincinnati would be at the center of attention as the hosts of the 1953 All-Star Game. On July 14th, the Splinted Splinter, Ted Williams, who had just returned home from war in Korea, threw out the ceremonial first pitch at Crosley Field in front of more than 30,000 fans, featuring iconic players such as Robin Roberts, Warren Spahn, Louisville's own Pee Wee Reese, Minnie Minoso, and Enos Slaughter. And we cannot forget the great Negro Leaguer and Major League Baseball player Satchel Paige at age 46. It was another victory for the National League, who had strung together 4 straight All-Star victories. By the start of the 1959 season, with the Reds scare losing credibility, team management decided that they had ducked the political association long enough, and it was safe to change their names back to the Reds. One Cincinnati sports writer said it like this: "We were known as the Reds before the commies. Let them change their name." That's right. Ironically enough, years later, Cincinnati's powerhouse ball club of the 1970s would be nicknamed the Big Red Machine. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, Stalin. But back in 1953, the Red Legs would finish 6th with a record of 68-86, 37 games behind them bums, the Brooklyn Dodgers. Today, the biggest remnant of this piece of Reds trivia is in the name of the team's mascot, Mr. Redlegs. And let me tell you, he's very frightening. But this era in American history is a stark reminder that political paranoia can even get a baseball team to change its name.
Alright, so that about does it for this episode. I want to thank Jason, zombie collector extraordinaire, for contributing his dulcet tones to this episode. And I encourage you all to check out the link to his channel below if you're not already a subscriber. Thanks everybody for checking out the video. I'm going to get started on the next one. And until then, I'll see you guys around YouTube.